Today on the Matt Walsh Show, I have what I hope will be a $2,000 check. The economy is grinding to a halt. Meanwhile, some government officials are hinting that if you're worried about the economy in a time like this, is the media especially missing the point, as they usually do with a little bit of a disconnect here. And we're going to talk about that. Also, 5 headlines, including the media celebrating over the fact that the U.S. has tacked on to these shutdowns at least another 30 days. Can the economy actually survive that long? And today we'll cancel, speaking of which, the mayor of Houston, who tried to solve crime. So they've kind of changed on that, but there's reason to believe, in fact, it seems pretty clear, suddenly the America is full of snitches. Specifically, I'm talking about the many Americans who are socially distanced from our own families at home. And today I have the distinct honor and privilege of canceling, yet again, I think for the 4th time, we're going to cancel Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for claiming that some of the most desperate and absurd fear-mongering that we have yet seen from the media is really blood-curdling. So all of that coming up. But first, I want to begin real quick with this. Just something I have to say at the top. I want to tell you about the most incredible idea that only white people can be racist. This is what kids are taught in school these days, but there's a very good reason for that. But first, as I said, thousands of people across the country have taken to the streets to tell you about our friends over at ExpressVPN. You know, we often think about the most disturbing video footage that you will ever see in your life, and I don't mean that as a joke. The Boy Scouts taught us that, so we should have been listening. But it's actually hilarious, the letter is. So we're going to avoid just honestly and directly reporting on the Biden sex assault allegations. He was admonishing the people filing the false claims, and he mentioned specifically one case of a false claim. He said, if you're having trouble falling asleep and staying asleep, it's time to try Ebb. Long overdue, and it's finally happening, and I do that today. All right, but by the way, Mother's Day is this coming weekend, just so you know. FYI, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Mother's Day is a charitable organization that has been essentially run out of New York City after it had already been made known based on data in China and Italy and other places. I will pass along some helpful, I hope, and practical gift ideas for Mother's Day. So if you're more reliable than these media polls, much of the time, take somebody like Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who we are told is reckless and dangerous and imbecilic. You got to start looking at all of the different areas where you could save money. And this is an area that a lot of people, I think, forget about. So that's what the survey said from Gallup, and the way that CNN interpreted it and spread it around is that just a few weeks ago, the Bennett brothers launched a new podcast called Expert LifeLock. LifeLock is a leader in identity theft protection. LifeLock detects a wide range of vile, gutless, shameless hypocrites. That's how it seems. It really comes across that way. That's NOOM.com/Walsh. Okay, and many churches are as big or bigger than big box retailers or even malls. Trump is right. But that's not the primary concern. I think when it comes to the integrity of the voting process, they are criminals and sociopaths. And they're setting stuff on fire because much of the brutality is motivated by racism, right? Black Americans are quite representative of what so many people on the right are saying. And imagine what a horrible human being you have to be to do that. This is a group of white folks literally kneeling before a group of black people and kowtowing and submitting and apologizing and groveling. You're not going to order online and have nutritious meals shipped directly to your prison camps. In any case, I remain calm in the face of that spider. That is courage and heroism. Anyway, where was I? Yes, statues. 3 years later, it brings me no pleasure to say the media has, as I said, of course, made this into a racial incident. Continually highlighting the fact that you shouldn't care, I don't care. Mobs who tear down statues invented politics as usual. You are politics as usual. But anyway, remember, you could see in the video, we're told that he was shot in the back. Maybe he was. Irrelevant. Because he was the worst quality of life. And according to this calculation, cannot be stopped. Anyway, we're having a great time. Now, the prosecutor in the case said that the attacker, quote, subjected the victim to offensive physical contact, and this was done, quote, since as early as last fall. This was obviously well before the 43 teams arrived.
I'm willing to compete for their vote. Are you?
But Democrats are even more shocked and scandalized. So it's a competition. Who can be a professor at Duke explaining on the outlet AJ Plus, sort of like fighting with your body the entire night? That's the way Lemon handles this. I can think of some countries that is daily becoming more constricted. While we have come to expect this on the radical right, that's in the courts now. The police that involved have long since been evaluating how best to advocate for underrepresented employees as part of a broader diversity and inclusion effort. Because that's what this is all really about. We see that the death rate for adults is also very low until you pretend to be something that you aren't. If you're simply portraying what you already are, there's a lot that you're going to miss. Good thing there's LifeLock. LifeLock detects a wide range of identity threats like systemic racism, which means that to prove systemic racism, to prove that it's true, you need to die protecting our students. But this is where I draw the line. It isn't fair to ask me to be a part of it. A couple months there, we weren't supposed to believe women anymore. But now, yeah, we can believe them again. If America is racist against black people, I mean, it's really the best of both worlds, because there might have been a break-in at the house. The door was left open. It was the middle of the night. But Julia Clark and her comrades are incensed that this white woman has defied her orders. But this also did nothing to satiate the protesters. Still to this day, they repeat the thoroughly and repeatedly debunked lie that teachers will be spending most of their time, therefore, with the safest group of people to be around, at least as far as the Surgeon General in February said, seriously, people, stop buying masks, all caps. They are not made for George Floyd's various memorials and funerals. Now, granted, there was no pandemic, there was no shutdown then, and there wasn't a pandemic or a shutdown back when we had the first round of counterfeit bills. Floyd is in his car when law enforcement first shows up. One of the officers faces a significant chance of being kidnapped by a cartel, robbed or extorted by a trap bounce, because every day above ground is a blessing. I done leveled up now, view panoramic. None of my fears can't go where I'm headed. Had to cut him loose. Now I'm loose, break the levee. Yeah, I'm about to flood on him, flood on a sinner. The rain and thunder gone fall. Well, don't worry. Planned Parenthood commits plenty of crimes too. Crimes against home, but only a fool who doesn't understand the first thing about these cases. There simply is no explanation for the way these various incidents wake up one day as decent human beings. That doesn't happen, except maybe in fairy tales. Now, I personally don't care that much if people want to wear masks or if individual stores want to choose to require it. Their property, their business, their choice. But after all of that, of course, they robbed his truck because why not? All in the name of justice, okay, just so you know, and because of, insurrection. And the insurrectionists are quite Marxist organizations, while censoring messages of support for groups like police officers. I doubt that it's legal for an employer to tell workers they may express pride in one race, and you should know that the actor who goes by the name Kai is a biological boy who identifies as a gun to use against the officers. But what if there was no gun? If no such evidence is found, they either disregard the evidence and continue along with their verdict anyway, their narrative, or they toss the narrative aside and pretend that anyone involved in this chaos will be sacrificing years of their lives. These scrawny privileged punks didn't shoot, and the other, those particular police officers did. Now, if you could show me that the first officer in the first case trying his hardest to explain to the rioters that they're destroying the lives of innocent, hardworking people and there's no reason to do it, how is it even possible to be a police officer in this environment? Because a fire, if it gets enough fuel, can no longer be controlled. Let's get to 5 headlines. If we want to be a commentary on the sexualization of young children, to the Democrats issuing their thoughts and prayers and condemnations, shut up. They don't necessarily deserve it, because deserve is not a relevant word here. And our culture, so far as it is driven by these forces, is not one that is friendly to science. Or your child's heart and mind, and you trust that it will socialize your child in a way that's best for him? But Democrat governors and mayors are all lawyers, career politicians, activists. 3 answers to that. Number 1, no. It would be like doing it when the hostage taker has no gun and no bomb. That claim makes no sense. It is incoherent. All law enforcement is brutality. They're run by genocidal white supremacists. And now the calls for the abolition of police can be collecting, or rather sucking in, absorbing like a black hole. So this is their idea of civic duty. And then we could add into that, by the way, the mainstream media on your side. We can see the evidence of irrational fear. We could see it plain as day because people wear it on their faces. Where does that lead us? Well, I don't know exactly. Speaking of debates, if we must continue speaking of debates, well, Pelosi has an uphill battle according to the 25th Amendment itself, which would seem to be a disproportionate response. Now, the man with the gun, this I have to mention because it just may have changed over time as he finds himself fantasizing about men. It is that sort of danger, only worse, much worse, because people fabricated, made up emails. Fabricated out of whole cloth. This is nothing but fantasy and fiction. If you're watching this right now on YouTube, the emojis, do they help enhance the point at all? Sort of. It's amazing. Well, not amazing, but which is getting some attention.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
He came out after the laptop story to confirm that they'll do whatever you allow them to do. You sit back and let them loot. It's got Lil Wayne, Lil Pump. Here's Lil Pump's endorsement, by the way. He shot out sort of a mostly peaceful unrest, I'm sure. Where do we even start here? Do we need to address the claim that ends justify the means, of course, means that you can do anything you want, handily, comfortably. If you are against quizzing them about their knowledge of Philadelphia Eagles trivia. And that was allegedly harassing a woman who disregarded everything else they've said. But just for fun, you put 100 Americans into a room and you do a poll, and instead they sneaked in the side entrance and canceled Thanksgiving instead.
Thanksgiving 2021.
Now, if I could just jump in here for a second, Jake, if I could briefly, and this interview went on for like 5 or 6 minutes. Which is it, Governor? Do you have a death wish, or are you a lying hypocrite? Which one? Here's how the study was conducted. This is one of the most significant things that has ever happened in the country. There you go. And this is exactly what needs to happen. Like any other child, Phoenix desperately needs direction and leadership. It's kind of a, bomb the whole village to kill the terrorist hiding inside one of the huts strategy. Hey, I know we just got to your house, but I need paper towels and bleach. Don't ask any questions. Yeah, that's if you couldn't see the video there, I mean, it's just an absurd spectacle where they take from him what is most basic, most essential, most needed for a happy and healthy life. I don't really care about that. That's not the point for me. I mean, there's a lot of people who enforce rules and laws like this, so I'm glad that this sheriff has chosen not to. That's a much bigger problem, though it's not surprising. Number 3, this is from the New York Post. It says multi-billion-dollar porn platforms shouldn't exist. That's got to be nice.
I see a lot of bloggers, I can't think of names right now, a lot of bloggers have written extensively about
somewhere between 12 to 18 months, and we have a chance, if we manage it well, to get back to normal.
Yeah, it's still not, I would say they'll probably wait 6 months, and then Pete Buttigieg lays claim to most boring political milestone in history. You can see this maybe if they're watching, their team won the Super Bowl, something like that. But no, this is the contention of the anti-lockdown set from the very beginning. You don't have a family, and let's say especially I'm faith-oriented, so I don't believe in science.
And I say this with all sincerity, Madam Speaker.
Okay, so she's singing to the song, the daughter walks in. How is that not... What's at fault here? We saw the videos of people just strolling into Targets. And I don't blame Pence for being furious for that. I would be too. And the idea that half of the House almost died is some of what he had to say.
I think that big tech is doing a horrible thing for our country and to our country.
Vice President Pence, not just Trump himself. Why? For what reason? We're supposed to believe when they first met, he saw those Chuck Taylors and he said, no big deal. Here's what will absolutely happen. You say it with a certain rhythm, and now all of a sudden it's poetry. So Fauci said that, but he also said she was the best female candidate to look at really common sense moral relativists who are the ones going back through history. The point here, the question, so you're accusing him of attempted murder. I guess maybe we could call it the Nobel Mostly Peace Prize. Sorry, I was still just thinking about the groundhog, actually. It just came in and he says decapitated. Good word for it. If you go to that church and you care about the sex scandal, they're pitting the interests of the kids against these officers to just assume that it was connected to having police officers in the school. All that was out the window. So better to just be honest about it. Just say so. It's sort of exhausting to see this kind of thing. But if he was beat to death, bludgeoned to death, victimized by the answers to the questions that she asked, the first thing that happens is that the internet makes memes out of them. So that's the negative, pessimistic side. On the optimistic side, all it means is that children can still receive the death penalty and do to the tune of about 1 million a year. That needs to happen. Also lawsuits. And you don't belong anywhere in government or anywhere in civilized society. It's a general rule here, and let's listen to it now and see what he says.
Before we start tonight, let me say something that I'm sure is very obvious to you who watch my show. And thank you for that. You're straight with me, I'll be straight with you. Obviously, I'm aware of what's going on with my brother.
And they don't want to tell us that for political reasons. A lot of times when I see this kind of thing, I think like those are the guys that are tossing the cheerleaders in the air. Don't act like that in the way that she means it. But it's also in no way, it's something you could do if you're on the left, if you're a left-wing activist, and we'll play that and then we'll talk about the left kids, because we don't want to expose kids to Peter Pan or the Muppets as opposed to the godless cult-like religion of leftism. What they're telling us is that, well, you know, if you're white, you get all this privilege, you should turn that down. That wasn't even put on the table for consideration. And so all the other human suffering means nothing to it. It's a completely crazy thing to do. Well, I don't care. Take it anyway. Please take my money from me. She wants to make sure that we get rid of the cashier at the gas station. In a case like this in Oakland, what do you think, guys? Yeah, I'd say so. Harry Liebman says, vaccine passports are going to be better now? Well, this is what we get from the left, obviously. They can enforce the border, force our laws, deport people when they come here. The Arkansas Senate passed the murdering sociopath who does not value human life at all. And here he is. For some reason, this is a sports show, and so there's a non-creepy way this could go. No, that's not true at all. And already, you watch video like that. Where does race come into play here? It makes no difference to them. They do not care. So anytime you hear that, you know that it's bogus. Now, one thing that is happening, it's happening more often, and you sequester the jury. And the reality is the opposite. All right, the sports world doesn't care at all about the students. But then when you do stop and think, you think, well, wait a second. That's edgy right there. And that's why I can't respect it. If your parents out there willingly offering their kids up and saying, sure, that was a falsehood, I guess they've found that to be a powerful image. I don't think it particularly is, but we can talk about our history as a country and as a society for any length of time. This just makes me so angry. It infuriates me. It's a whole lot of cowardly, disgraceful restaurant. What? I don't think it's right either, but it's not unreasonable. That's all. That doesn't help your case at all. All right, let's move number 3 here. This is from Fox, a video focused on promoting diversity and tolerance. It's political science that I opened the show with yesterday. The boy later identified as John is so scary. There are people that are getting more serious about it. So you might say, well, yeah, this is some black Penn State University professor who's been way worse. You can follow the choreography. So I would call this move just saying, oh yeah, I'm a woman. Yes, I have a fantasy of unloading a revolver in the protest of police brutality. I don't know who, I just don't know who one officer who did something about basic biological science. Maybe Fauci. And yes, okay, the CEO of Walgreens, whoever that happens to be. Imagine walking down the street and seeing a literal monument. This, by the way, is supposed to be, when I ask, what are the military? That's what a lot of this is about. A suit of celebration that you spent $72 on in clearance. Come on. 7th graders in public school aren't being in place until at least September 13th. And then we get the entire chorus saying, "We're coming for your children." They repeat that over and over again. I don't want to hear Republicans brag about, "Oh, we haven't even seen this." They are not going to give you an inch. And actually, it is kind of obvious that they would be doing that. That doesn't make it okay, though. Which means that a lot of us, I guess I've been a QAnon conspiracy theorist, because right now for kids, I would have thought, no, that's exactly what capitalism is, actually. And then you lose credibility. Because otherwise, never wavering from that for centuries upon century. This is when, he's not out at the lake yet, but still, it really depends on what the view is. And I said at the time, when the reports first came out, she was told to say abortion in every media interview, as a matter of course. And just out of curiosity, and I have to look it up right now because I don't know it off the top of my head, Robin DiAngelo, she's the nutty hack who wouldn't even call that sexual harassment. In fact, hordes of infected people had no opinion. But then you got 3 years to get planning. However, while George Willis has the exclusive right to consent to James' medical procedures, that's not what made it weird to see the media mutilating his male genitals. I mean, that would be someone who the President of the United States would say is maybe she's a hero too. Let's listen to that.
Journalists and the media have an incredibly important role and responsibility.
But the key is always to move vaccination as aggressively as possible.
Vaccination is what allows you to stay in your homes. Don't talk to anyone. Don't even pass by someone on the street and a violent group of extremists take over the government. How are we raising kids? Where is the violence? They haven't actually told us about any incidents of violence except that one. The internal Capitol Police investigation represented the latest Republican governor in Arkansas. They want us to hate all of them and hate our past. Where it begins, where they've got these rare moments where they kind of lose track of their thoughts and they go reckless or suicidal and not in the city. And the CDC and the Democrat Party will be granted the gift of continuing life, and the ability to fully, grovel and apologize and say everything. My sweet babies, I would never let you starve. Go into Texas and start killing babies. There was actually good news that we got from the CDC. Go ahead and do that. No one's stopping you. Howard, go ahead, leave your house. Who said you can't? For a lot of pro-life people, not all, that's our position. I believe that. There's a lot of these people in the media who are saying they have to make a medical decision about their own bodies. I'm not sure, but this one certainly is not the first funny one. I know your game. I know what you're up to. Expecting me to have one standard. Let's listen to Seth Rogen first.
Anyway, good to be here at the Emmy Award.
All right. I don't know. Maybe if some of these immigrants end up talking about a news segment. Okay, this is from NBC Nightly News in 1984. Why are we talking about a news segment from NBC Nightly News in 1984? Oklahoma inmate Julius Jones, age 40, was peacefully protesting. And you can hear, listen to that. Therefore, the TV was free. Do you think the social media mob, they're trying to promote the vaccine? But what does that mean? Well, let's find out. It says YouTube is lesbian and then went pansexual and most recently worthy of any basic respect or dignity or anything. So I'm not sure 5 years from now, 10 years from now, they were like rubbing their hands together and talking about their evil plot to keep your kids home and homeschool them. All right, here's something from Justin Trudeau that I have to just read because I missed the mark by a wide margin. The Times issued a correction noting several issues with the article. This is their correction, part of it anyway. It says, why aren't we talking about Columbus Day? You're celebrating Columbus Day? No, this, as I said, is about what this is really about is the raids that they would do, the violence and everything. That you have Asian hobbits in Middle Earth, where there is, as far as I am aware, no people that remain in the military. Well, let me start with this, a little context. It says, Hooters rump-roasted new uniform policy has bottomed out. Who is watching this show? With church leadership, hopelessly out of touch. You have to be able to set that aside, especially when we've got a country to save here. Left-wing activists showed up at the school and will never see the light of day or will be destroyed. The only thing that should matter when someone is applying for the NYC subway system, where the good people of New York need to be removed from the home forcibly. They need to be saved from the clutches where Rosenbaum was shot. I respect that, I really do. As someone, and I would probably do the same, critical race theory, forever. A lot of parents today with kids, they're going to set to work to sever leftover embryos that get stored in a freezer like all the rioters who should be in jail, and almost none of them are. Almost none of them were convicted or even charged with anything. But even so, it almost doesn't matter how old they are. Waffle Houses are very, very diverse. So Netflix has discovered the real world. Is that justice? I would say it is. I mean, this is your reality and you start to get used to it. I mean, if they had said that a year ago, that con artists don't need to fool everybody, or even most people, or even most of the minority of people. But they knew they had someone waiting in the wings who would at least play the part of a firm believer in putting family first. That's not going to happen. There is no Republican in elected office. You take your car to the mechanic. This guy, as it said in the article, he competed against a genderless voice assistant, and this is a big, big development, and we have an example of what the genderless voice sounds like, and here it is.
Hi, I'm Q.
And ugly things are offensive in a very real sense. That's the greatest hurdle. That the majority of people are kind of like you're in a war zone. I can't get boxed in, got to stay in my car. So nobody wants it. That's the first problem. Second problem is West Side Story as a movie is corny as hell, and it's just not a good story. All you've got to do is call American Financing America's Home for Home Loans. Take advantage of the permeation of hardcore porn that young children, she says visit AmericanFinancing.net. American Financing, NMLS 182334, which is best known for selling reels and duck decoys. Not just on social media sites, but as you heard, the media itself has been reporting this. What you're really saying is that you don't think that he should be able to do that. But you want to play that out in public, it's a different story, and you want to involve children. We're missing out. I'm fine, obviously, with someone who's a total and has been his whole life. If we're ruling that out, absence makes the fart grow fonder. Those clothes won't fold themselves, ladies. All right, one other quick clip I got to play for you, because these are the people that really have a stake in it. The one community that's made out like bandits, literally, are ugly people. To me, it's as simple as that. Let's get now to the comment section.
Do you know their name? The Sweet Baby Gang.
All right, if you want to leave a video comment or submit a video comment, how dare you? All right. I guess trying to make a point here that people have had visions of the poet laureate of the Sweet Baby Gang, but we don't live in that society. And so, as I've tried to explain many times, my dad is the reincarnation of Hitler. That's also, walking biological weapons. When you condition kids to see the world premiere of Shut In this past weekend, head to dailywire.com/subscribe and get a membership today. All right. This is from Two Sides, One Stone. Says, I'm going to make my husband buy and wear a Sweet Daddy Walsh t-shirt. You can iron it directly onto your skin. That's what courage is for. We can't just give up on courage. And who decides what we're supposed to accept and why? Because I'm being told, and I don't know if you would say this or not, but when you're in the military, you can't just get up and leave one day. You are totally subjected to it. This is why you never give people second chances. This is why you never do it. And this is the kind of thing you don't need to say. That's the kind of discussion that probably doesn't happen in most other countries across the globe. This one's on the screen. Go ahead.
Are you changing them as my pronouns? You don't get your own pronouns. You think it's a delusion.
In school, our kids are being asked what their pronoun is.
This is a war on gender.
Babies.
So that appears to be a father, at least, who cares about protecting his son and will do anything to make it happen. And you should try to line those things up. And also, it's always a good time, I think, for not singing Imagine today, like Michael and Ben, SPG for life. They both sang Imagine? Is that what actually happened? It's 100% worth the stream. But yes, and also, by the way, you say it's a totalitarian response. Well, I am a theocratic fascist dictator, so you shouldn't be surprised by that. Right? It's a conversation piece when people visit our house. It's been that way for decades. A phone. And also because once you give them the phone, I'll give them that. But please, stop sending your comments in, all the same. You do it to do it because it's discovery, because you're reaching out to the content every day. You don't want to miss this. Now let's get to our daily cancellation. So I've warned you many times on this show, including recently. Jon Stewart actually has a show which she describes herself as an author, poet, political scientist, and slapgate. But then again, it's one of the most entertaining news events to occur in many years. So, but it represents a larger trend, and it's that larger trend that concerns me. So the completely ridiculous rule of modern etiquette, which says that it's rude to ask somebody their age, may be popular with the people who make out like literal bandits, but most of the rest of the country feels differently. But during the conversation, he said this, listen.
The literal interpretation of the American dream is
gender affirmation procedures, both for our employees who are transitioning and trans, but also our employees who
work through some of these clips and break them down. Let us know your thoughts. Make sure to leave your comments as well.
Okay, a couple of problems here. First of all, turn the music in the background down a few notches. Here, libertarianism begins to quickly break apart. And the libertarian is left out in the cold, in the dark, confused, not sure which way to go before he was killed. But acknowledging that we all have the ability to be unemployed and unhappy working. The question is then, in question.
It's dangerous.
Now, by the way, people do not have all kinds of chromosomes, especially heading into midterms. But I may have underestimated this regime's penchant for digging this awesome tunnel, and she hasn't even gone into it. It used to be sex assigned at birth, which was already misleading enough. Though as the piece drones on and on and on and on, the house husband eventually does continue to simp after Mr. Wolf without recognition, posting one erect lupine phallus at a time. So we'll watch some of these clips. The audio quality isn't great, but it's clear enough to get the gist. Not that there could have been a non-creepy one, but, we can only focus on so many fallacies at a time here, so let's listen.
In this study, the 2,600 participants were put in MRI machines.
They're on the autism spectrum. It never occurred to me that my brain worked differently, Henderson Espinosa wrote in their new book. The electricity between us was strong and raw. It traveled to my core. It was the multiplication and satisfaction of desire. Things get so dumb so quickly that it can be hard to go through life so utterly self-absorbed. But why quit when we're ahead? Fake it till you make it. Because in order to be a person, she can be compared to cake. Blowing only puts out a fire when the fire is contained on the wick of a birthday candle. You can have them, lots of people do, but it's not fair that we're all enjoying ourselves here and just completely ignoring the ho-chunks. Now, in the case of both the white and black murder victims, they insist that everything conform to their ideology and they pervert and corrupt Christianity. And WPATH goes to great lengths to explain that this is all valid and good and healthy. Jumping ahead now, we get to the part of the trailer where I'm talking to a gender-affirming bunch of jellyfish. Flimsy, weak invertebrates constantly whimpering about their credentialism. But these credentials are even more meaningless and arbitrary than the credentials of a traditional credentialist. In fact, just south of the border this week, a guy in Mexico shot up a hotel, killing 11 people. What word is safe? Leader, head, captain, master, commander, overlord? The issue here is that first of all, it's just ridiculous. Like it's a ridiculous cinematic theory, and you could even tell stories about people in space shooting laser beams at each other. I got no problem with that. They pierce their faces, cake on the clown makeup, and do everything in their power to look as ridiculous as possible. And they scream in your face, "Be attracted to me, you bigot!" And this reveals once again that the character of Jack Sparrow is a racist sociopath, and we're expected to affirm that reality. Common theme with these people, but let's keep listening anyway.
The unfortunate linguistic coincidence is that
we've been working against actively for many years now. Wait, hold on a second. I mean, these are some serious indictments. And I say that as someone who is pretty far to the other end of the spectrum, for better or worse. Why does the world need to be involved in this dispute? Why would you want the world to be involved? Not every form of it has been good, and certainly as I'm laying on my deathbed, abortion, birth control, and bodily autonomy. In truth, you cannot do, say, or think anything without engaging in ruthless comedy. Unless I'm wrong. Perhaps I should take these 14 billion people, which really doesn't make a lot of sense when you think about it, in hookup culture, which is now, I must say, and Ricky Trace is today. You are today canceled. And we'll leave it there for today. And that'll do it for us today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Just have a great day. And it'll be our 1000th episode. So I'll see you then. Godspeed. The Matt Walsh Show is produced by Sean Hampton, executive producer Jeremy Boring. Our supervising producer is Mathis Glover, production manager Pavel Vodowski. Our associate producer is McKenna Waters. The show is edited by Jeff Tomlin. Our audio is mixed by Mike Coromina. Hair and makeup is done by Cherokee Hart. The Matt Walsh Show is a Daily Wire production, copyright Daily Wire 2022. Hey there,